everyone. Thanks again for joining the Emerald Coast Essentials podcast. Today I'm joined by Tim. He's a buddy of mine and been on the Emerald Coast for...
Going on 5 years now.
Okay, 5 years. Nice, man. What did you do before you got here, and how did you end up here?
Well, I was in the Army, so that I got stationed here. I was in training in North Carolina for about 3 years,
Okay.
and then knew that I was going to be stationed here, and so that was a lot to look forward to, being in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is not a great place. And so that was definitely one of the best feelings of my life, was leaving Fayetteville and knowing I was going to come to here.
Nice. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Dallas area in Arlington, Texas.
Okay, so you're familiar with the South and humidity and hurricanes. That wasn't a big culture shock?
No, and we don't really get any hurricanes up that far in Texas, but definitely the heat and definitely the humidity as well. So it's hotter there than it is here.
All my in-laws lived in the Dallas area, the greater Dallas area. One of the first times I went to visit them, there was just a horrendous hailstorm, and I was like, what is happening? And they're like, oh, anytime there's a hurricane hitting the coast, we get these massive hailstorms that shoot up. And I was like, that's wild.
Oh, yeah, just the west to east moving storms, coming off the Rockies. It's just... I've never seen any storms like a thunderstorm in Texas. It's crazy. I've driven down a 6-lane highway each direction, and everybody was going either 20 miles an hour or pulled off the road because it was raining that hard where you couldn't see. Nobody was going over 20. But it's just the weather there is pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was your biggest culture shock going from, we'll say, Dallas to North Carolina or Texas, because you said Houston, right?
Well, Houston, went down there on vacation a few times because that's the closest coast. There really wasn't too much of a culture shock. North Carolina, Florida. I went to school up in Washington, so that was definitely more of a culture shock.
Yeah,
I was up there for about 5 years.
DC or state?
State. Okay. Yeah. And so that's the culture is definitely different on the West Coast versus the South. The South is, in Texas, fairly similar. The Washington, the Seattle area, quite a bit different.
For sure. I was stationed in Washington State before I moved here, so I completely feel you. So where'd you go to school?
Central Washington.
Okay, nice. How'd you like it up there?
I liked it. It was...
Well, it's not good. Let's just turn that off.
Right.
My ringer's turned off. What the hell?
I liked it. Washington's a beautiful state. It's one of the prettiest places in the world to be, especially over on the west side. But I definitely I like the culture in the South better.
Okay.
So it was good to get up there and see a different part of the country, but it was good to come back to my people around here.
Yeah, nice, man. Nice. Yeah. So you said you you were in Texas, went to college in Washington.
Yep.
And what'd you get your degree in?
In accounting.
And then you enlisted in the Army?
Yes. So I did my bachelor's and master's in accounting, and then I started thinking about joining the military because obviously, you can work in an office job until you're 75 years old. But you can only really go into the military, once you get past 30, it's kind of over if you haven't done it.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about that, and then decided to join the Army while I was finishing up my master's degree. And so then that's how I ended up enlisting.
So what made you enlist over commissioning? How come you didn't go do some desk job in the Army?
I didn't want to join the Army to do that, so I was looking at...
Fair enough.
Initially, I was looking at, SEALs, Special Forces. I wanted to do something like that.
Shoot guns, jump out of planes.
Yep. Yeah. Shoot guns, jump out of planes, and go get the bad guys. And so went to the Navy recruiter first, and they were bad. They lied. You always hear the stories about recruiters lying, and they were especially bad and obvious too. And I was like, man, at the time I was 26 years old, and I was like, man, I wasn't born yesterday, and it's kind of ridiculous that they would would say this to an 18-year-old who maybe hasn't had a little bit more life experience and wouldn't realize that they're just lying to them.
Say that louder for all the 18-year-olds who are thinking about joining the military right now. Your recruiter is just getting numbers. Like, you can always join next month.
Yeah, he's not your friend. And they try to tell me, because I wanted this specific contract, I wanted the SEAL contract, and they try to tell me that I had to enlist and go needs of the Navy before they would decide whether to give me that contract or not. And I was like, I know that's not how that works. And so I went right next door to the Army. I was like, I'll do this instead. And so it was a much, much better process getting into the Army.
They've been doing it a little longer, so you know, that's fair. Right on. So what did you do in the Army?
I was a Special Forces engineer sergeant. So Special Forces, and my job specialty was explosives. So did all the explosives training. Not as much as EOD. I always like having EOD because they know a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's always nice having somebody with a little bit more training.
So like, are you sure? Are you sure it's this one? What did he say? Nice, man. Cool. And you did that for how long?
I did. So I was in the Army for a total of 6.5 years, and Special Forces. I was training for that the whole time until, and that took about 3 years to do just the training, the initial training. And so three years as a Special Forces engineer sergeant.
Okay, nice. You like it?
I did. I liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun. Best part was the people you get to meet. There's some of the best people in the world that go special operations, and it's because they want to challenge themselves. So just the people that you get to meet and that are challenging themselves to do that, it's probably the best part of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, any career field with a high attrition rate where, you know, the easy way to get out of doing it is self-elimination and quitting, you know, whether it's ringing the bell from buds or what we call the SIE, you know, drop on request, whatever they call it in the different branches of different schoolhouses. But what that results in is always a core group of people who worked really hard and were highly motivated, you know, to get through the suck. And I always thought that brought together like the best people that I always wanted to go spend time with. Not that there's anything wrong with doing everything else in the military, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the people that you meet in those circles are different.
Oh yeah. And you have that shared experience where like everybody that you know that's got a Green Beret has done almost exactly what you've done in that training, you know, slight variations, but you know the places, you know what it took to do that. And so you know that person at least accomplished that. And so it kind of gives that shared experience, and you can really just talk to somebody and like you instantly know each other a little bit because you know what they've gone through.
For sure. Deployments?
Yes, I did one deployment to Afghanistan.
Okay. How long were you there for?
8 months.
Nice. How'd you like it?
It was interesting. It was an interesting time. Yeah. Afghanistan's it feels like you're going back in time to like the dark ages, but then they're also cars from 40 years ago.
Right. You know, it's funny. Ignorance on my part, but when I first got to Afghanistan, I remember looking around and just being like, man, if they just, you know, I mean, I don't mean to comment negatively on the culture, but like it was beautiful. The mountains, there was like snow-capped mountains everywhere, and I was like, you put a ski resort, get some ski lifts, you know, it'd be an awesome place to go visit outside of the obvious dangers, you know, that exist innately in the culture. So it was definitely interesting. So where were you at in Afghanistan?
That was in the south, near Jalalabad. Okay,
nice. Did you enjoy it over there?
I did. Yeah, no, it was an interesting time. Great experience. Yeah, it was definitely one of the more different experiences of my life, just to see that different culture. And yeah, it was interesting.
What was that like for you? Like, I mean, you said you went through 3 years of training to get your MOS.
Yeah.
And then you only actually, I don't mean this in a negative way, but only did your job for 8 months. Like the training to the return there, not that you don't get other training involved and other life skills through that, but I guess, have you ever like reflected on that, or what was that like?
Yeah, I've reflected on it. And if anything, I look back and thought, hey, maybe I should have joined sooner.
Yeah.
Definitely thought about that. because I would have liked to do that more and use the skills that I learned. I was just a little late to the game, but I'm still glad I did it. But I would have liked to do more.
What made you separate?
Well, the war in Afghanistan was kind of winding down, and like that's why I joined, was to go fight. I wasn't joining for college because I did that prior.
Right.
And so without that happening, without that on the horizon, I didn't want to be part of peacetime military where a lot more dumb stuff happens. So
you're not wrong.
When there's no mission, then the focus shifts to stuff that doesn't matter. And that's why I joined, was for that. And because I joined a little bit later, I would have had to stay till I was almost 50 to get to retirement, and just a little too much. A little too hard on the body with the type of training that we do to go long term. And I saw friends that I knew that were close to 20 that were just broken down just from 20 years of being in the Army and carrying a rucksack on their back that's super heavy for years and years and years. And so their backs are shot, joints are shot, and mine were somewhat at 6.5 years, but I saw people at 20 that was way worse. And so I decided to get out, and, also it's nice to, be at home more. I know my wife likes that. So
yeah, I'm sure. So you're married and you have one dog, right?
Yep. We have a giant schnauzer.
Nice. And you live on the water in Destin.
Yep.
Well, I guess you're on the bay side, right?
Yeah, we're on the south side of the harbor.
Okay.
On, Holiday Isle.
Nice. How you like it there?
It's awesome. It's hard to beat. In the backyard, we have the canal, and so we have water access. And then across the street, a little bit up the street, we can go and be on the beach. So
nice.
It's pretty nice.
That's awesome. So what's been your favorite part? So obviously the Army brought you down here. You got stationed here up at 7th Special Forces Group.
Yeah.
And then you separated and decided this was the place you were going to stay. What's your favorite part about being here?
Just being this close to the water, and it's like it really is one of the nicest beaches in the world. I've been to Hawaii one time, and the beaches here are nicer than the several beaches I went to in Hawaii, and it's just hard to beat the emerald water and the white sand beaches. And it's nice because it's still a small town. You get the small town for 7-8 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And then, you've got tourist season with all the people. But at the same time, because there's so many tourists coming in, there's so much money coming in, you've got stores, you've got places to go that you wouldn't have in a 15,000 person town.
Right.
So that's nice, and it's kind of worth having all the tourists come in for the summer because of everything that's here because of it.
Yeah. I was driving down 98 yesterday going to the beach. We had a homeschool event at the beach, so I went and I just sat up kind of in the shade and worked. But I ended up spending an hour or something. I went and worked at the beach, overlooking the water. And it's beautiful. There's this nice ocean breeze. It's a little warm, but it's Florida. Get over it. It's you move down here, you gotta suffer through the beautiful weather, and it's a little bit sweaty, But I went down to the beach afterwards and was kind of hanging out. The water was still flat, crystal clear, just beautiful, nice and cool. Usually we get seagrass by August, but not yet. But all the jellyfish have started rolling in. So
they have started rolling in the past 2-3 weeks.
But I learned yesterday actually the moon jellies, which they're a little bit bigger and they got some color on them, but they got the 4 circles on the top of them. Apparently their harpoons is what they call them, aren't strong enough to penetrate the skin. But I don't know if you've had any experience getting stung by anything out here yet.
Not around here. At least not that's been noticeable. I've probably gotten a little sting here or there, but nothing bad.
Yeah. Nice. So you're obviously pretty close to the water. What else do you like to do when you're here?
I like to go out. We have a boat, so I like to go out with my wife and our dog. We go out and cruise around the harbor, cruise around the bay. When it's calm, because it's a smaller boat, we'll take it out the pass into the Gulf. That's really cool, especially when it's flat in the Gulf. I mean, you've got, it's got to be perfect. The tide's got to be coming in at the right time. You've got to have a north wind to flatten out all the waves. But when it's nice out, man, it is like flat and clear. You can see 20 feet to the bottom, and it's like, I mean, it looks like a lake when it's really calm. So that's really cool. But you just kind of have to look for those opportunities because it's not usually like that because it is the ocean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You find it's better during a certain time of year or time of day, or just you roll the dice and see what it looks like once you get out there?
It really depends. Like I pull up the tide chart because 2 hours before, 3 hours after that high tide is when it's really pretty out. And then if you're looking for flat, it's like if you get a north wind. So I haven't found that any time of year is better than the other. Usually summer you don't get a lot of north winds, but spring, fall, you get some more of those. But you just have to. I always look at the tides, and then I always look at the weather. And if I see a 6 or 7 mile an hour north wind, I'm like, that's probably going to be perfect out there. And so that's when you kind of get out there. But the upside to being that close to the water is like you can look for the times when it's nice, and then you go out. You're not stuck planning 2 weeks in advance. Hey, this is the day we're going to go out there. You can just look out that day and say, oh, it's going to be really nice. Let's go out there right now.
Nice. Everyone says the two best days of boat ownership is the day you buy it and the day you get rid of it. How do you feel about that?
I've definitely heard that. Yeah, and I've heard the boat stands for bust out another 1,000 because that's what it takes. Everything on a boat's $1,000. This is $1,000, or bust out another 1,000. One of my buddies, Bobby, he said boat stands for buy another 1,000.
Yeah,
I said, Bobby, that's bad. That's not boat. But he's from Alabama, so
roll tide.
Yeah, roll tide. But yeah, no, I have heard that. I haven't really experienced that too much yet. Just because, I mean, we're fortunate enough to be right there on the water, and then the boat's literally in the backyard. I think a lot of boat ownership and why it's a hassle is because if you want to take the boat out, you gotta get it on the trailer. You gotta go down. You gotta drop it in the water. Then you gotta stay out because you spend all that time doing that. And then you gotta take it off. You gotta come clean it. And so it's there's a lot of hassle to that. Right. I don't think we'd own a boat if we didn't have that water access because we can walk down our back, steps and go, hop in the boat, and 5 minutes later we're out in the water.
So you find it's worth it, even if there is, obviously there's cost associated with it.
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of one of the missed points that everyone's like, oh, never buy a boat because it costs money. It's like, but if you're out on it every weekend and it's beautiful and you can go to the harbor, or wherever. Out here you can use it for commuting. There's enough little canals and stuff that if you work really within a half mile of the canal, there's usually somewhere that you can park, tie your boat up, and walk to work. I know people that do that. Or just you want to go to a restaurant, like take your boat. There's a bunch of restaurants on the water, and almost all of them on the water have somewhere to tie a boat up. Yeah. So worth it though.
Definitely worth it. Yeah. I don't know if we'd do it if we weren't on the water. I know a lot of people that do the boat clubs, and those are nice because there's no hassle. You pay your monthly fee. And you'd be paying maintenance on a boat anyway. So, you pay for it, you show up, they give you the keys, you drive it around, you come back, you don't even have to fill it up with gas or clean it. And then that's that. So you kind of get what you pay for there. I think that's what the way we would have gone if we didn't have that water access. But the water access makes it worth having a boat.
I've considered doing the boat clubs too, because some of the boat clubs, especially the nicer ones around here, allow you to there's pontoon boats, there's fishing boats, there's open bows, there's deep sea, there are V-hulls. So you can kind of, if I want to wake up and go fishing with buddies, I can go get a fishing boat. If I'm trying to do a day out at Crab Island with some family or whatever, I can get a pontoon boat. Yeah, and it kind of lets you have the variety of owning 4 or 5 different boats, but not having to actually own 4 or 5 different boats, right? You can mix it up a little bit. Definitely one of those things that you got to use it if you're going to pay for it, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people, you get busy with life. It takes a little bit of effort to get it scheduled and booked out. And then they end up going 6 months and paying however much money for these memberships. And never use it, and then they're like, "Oh, this is this is a waste of money. This is BS." It's like, well, it's not too bad.
And there's less flexibility. You gotta, you have to in advance. You have to reserve it. Couple 3 weeks out, a month out,
right?
And then you like obviously you don't know the weather and it's going to be in months from now, so you could reserve it for a day, and then it could be a day when there's a lot of storms. So that's kind of the downside of that. But I mean, the upside is you don't have to go to a boat slip and drop it in and do all that nonsense. So there's a lot of upside to it.
Speaking of storms and bad weather, did you see a hurricane's about to hit California?
I did, yeah. That's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be interesting. I grew up in Southern California, so I messaged my family. It's just like, you guys sticking around for this thing? But they're supposed to get, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot here. If anyone's from that side of this country, like, I was looking at it where my parents live. They're like, oh yeah, we're predicted to get like 3 or 4 inches of rain.
It's a lot for Southern California because they've got
a lot of landslides that happens, and highways wash out and roads wash out. And the infrastructure just isn't built to funnel that off quick enough. The water doesn't soak into the ground. Here, we get 2 inches of rain every other afternoon, and it just disappears within 3 hours. I don't know where it all goes, but
the ocean's right there.
But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. So I think it's projected to hit on the 21st where my parents are at.
Oh yeah,
that's like 3 days.
I saw something about that. It's supposed to weaken by the time it gets up there, which that usually happens before it gets to California. It gets that chance to weaken. But even then, I mean, just the amount of rain that's going to get dumped there, they are not built for that. I mean, Southern California just doesn't get any rain.
Yeah.
So.
It'll for sure be interesting.
It'll be interesting
go, but cool, man. Well, I got to ask. So if someone is coming to visit here for 24 hours, 48 hours, if they're coming on vacation, whatever, what are your top recommendations? What do you got to do if you're coming down here?
I would say, like, if you're going to come here for that short of time, definitely spend a lot of it on the water, whether you're going to the beach, and really you can go to any beach around here. They're all pretty nice, whether it's 30A or Destin or Okaloosa Island. You're going to have those white sand beaches. And I'd also say Destin's a little bit busy, but if you go to the harbor area, that's nice. Yeah. You can always rent a boat, jet ski. You'll pay for it. Yeah. It's really expensive, but it's nice to get out on a boat and just see everything. And then if people are a little fancy, they can go down to 30A and get the $10 ice creams and stuff like that. So that's always fun to go to. But it's so crowded down there. We don't go down there until like the off season.
I don't remember what the name of the section of 30A is, but there's a section of like 8 food trucks that are more or less like permanent there.
Seaside, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we were over there and we were getting some food. I remember like a plate of barbecue was like $21. I was like, how many does this feed? It's like, no, just
one person.
Yeah, one person, one moderately hungry person. Yeah. I was like, oh God.
That's a really cool place to go.
It is really cool.
Old 98 is really, really cool to go. You've got the sidewalks with the bikes and everything, and you can see a lot of the ocean. It's kind of up on a hill, so it's pretty down there. And that's a good place to go and walk and go to a beach bar and sit there and look at the ocean. So
there's supposed to be a new bike path going in that's going to connect Fort Walton and Destin. So it's going to go all the way across Okaloosa Island, which will be really nice.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they're going to include some parking on Okaloosa Island to get out to the beach in between the two also. We'll see. But
probably not, because
almost every day someone is sunk and stuck out there, which is horrible. But you mentioned the beaches in Destin. I noticed when I started going to the beaches, because we went to Okaloosa Island for the longest time when we first moved here, because it was the closest to us. Like, we'd go across the bridge down to Fort Walton, and it's right there, and that's where we'd go. And then when I moved up to Niceville, we started going to some of the beaches in Destin. And there was just, if you're not staying in some of those condo buildings, there's like, it's all roped off. And if you're not staying in one of the hotels or condo-tels or whatever it is, then, there's like 20 linear feet of beachfront for 1,000 people. And it's just horrible. Do you know of any good places that are kind of more open to the public if they want to go to the beach in Destin?
In Destin, there's not a ton. I mean, Noriego Point has a lot of beach, but a lot of that's not on the actual Gulf. It's on the bay and then also the harbor. But it's also a pretty cool area. But Crystal Beach area, that's kind of where, if you're talking about Destin beaches, that's where the most parking is, at that Crab Trap and the I forget what the other restaurant is down there. But they generally, you can find parking there, and there's a decent amount of space. So like the Crab Trap in Okaloosa Island and also the one in Destin on Old 98, that's kind of a good spot to go shoot for if you're looking for a beach.
Okay, cool. So rent a boat, go to the beach.
Yeah.
Hang out with the water. Anything else?
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of good restaurants. So there's.
What's your favorite?
See, favorite restaurant. Yeah, that's a difficult one.
What's your favorite, or what's a hidden gem? Like, what's something that you wouldn't find if you were coming to town to visit?
Well, for quicker food, definitely Burrito del Sol.
Okay.
There's one in Fort Walton and one in Destin. Pretty good burritos, so that's always solid. And they're pretty quick, and they're always consistent. Good food. Actually, next to Burrito del Sol, there's a restaurant called Red Onion, which is a Greek place, and they've got some really good food. Really like Red Onion.
I'll have to try that. I've never had Red Onion.
Yeah, you have to wait a little bit longer. They usually just have one waitress there, and she's running around like crazy. Really good. But they've got some great food, especially if you like Greek.
Okay.
Yeah, get the Greek nachos for sure. No. And then also they have Greek fries, and they're really solid. But definitely like a sit down. They've got that Mediterranean. You're going to be there for an hour and a half.
Cool.
Unless you get there early. But it's really good food. Really good food.
I like that. I like sitting down and hanging out for an hour and relaxing and having some good food. Awesome, man. Well, I got to run, but I really appreciate you coming on. Anything else? Any parting shots?
None that I can think of now.
Cool, man. We'll do it again.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, bud.